Susan Bratton, welcome to the Naked Connection. So excited to have you here today. It's really an honor for you to
It's
be with the audience and myself. So, yeah,
yeah, it's an
yeah,
honor. We are kindred spirits. We both like to help men
yeah.
pleasure their partners even better. So let's get that done today.
Perfect, perfect. Well,
Good.
uh, in in knowing that we were going to have this conversation for everyone that's listening, you're truly ultimately a walking encyclopedia of how to have amazing sex. And so I was like, where can we go today? And you've been talking about something that I haven't seen many people dive into yet. And it's this space of really biohacking our sex life and our love
Yeah.
life. So I would love if you could share how we can start to do that in a natural way.
Yes. Yeah. Biohacking is a term that came out of the anti-aging and longevity world. And it's kind of merged with regenerative medicine. Now, the use of like Gaines wave and Femi wave to, Gaines wave for men to stimulate new penile tissue, using penis pumps or vacuum erection devices to pull more blood flow into the penis to keep atrophy at bay, and then go even further to what I call that regenerative, like you're biohacking when you're keeping atrophy at bay. When you get atrophy and you want to reverse it with a penis pump, with Gaines waves, things like that, then you're doing regenerative therapy. And then once you get it all working the way you want it, sometimes you want to go beyond maybe the size that you were. Maybe you're 5 inches, you want to go 6, or you're 6 and you want to go 7, or what have you, if you're a guy. Then you go back into more biohacking in the area of male enhancement, and you can use a penis pump for enlargement, 20 to 25% overall penile volume within 10 months of a consistent pumping program.
Whoa.
And so a lot of guys that are my fans and followers are guys that are doing basically male enhancement, penis enlargement as well, because they didn't realize that the penis will respond to essentially progressive overload, which is what they're doing when they go into the gym and they work their muscle groups, and they do tiny little micro tears that then rebuild overnight in recovery to get a bigger volume of tissue. And I wish that worked for breasts. It doesn't. You
Mm.
can't you can't really pump the breasts and increase the tissue, but you
Mm.
can the penis, which is interesting.
Mm.
And then for women, it's also mostly what I start with is like, how do you reverse the issues that happen with that atrophy, such as loss of lubrication, painful
Mm.
intercourse, thinning of the vaginal tissue, urinary incontinence, and diminishment of orgasmic pleasure.
Mm.
Also, labial laxity, kind of like a flaccid vulva and flaccid tissue. And so for that, FemiWave is really good. And also, there's a red light therapy biohacking device I like that's called the vagina device. It uses photobiomodulation or red light therapy
Mhm.
and warmth and vibration for Kegel toning. It goes inside the vagina, where FemiWave is kind of applied outside the body, but it goes through into the vaginal mucosal lining. This is more of a thing that's like an at home, do it yourself sexual biohacking device. I use it on the days that I know I'm going to have intercourse with my husband. I also like to kind of warm up and engorge my vaginal canal
Mm.
with the vagina device. And then when women start doing those things, they start doing FemiWave or using the vagina device. Sometimes they're like, oh, maybe I need to get an O shot, an orgasm shot, which
Mhm.
is PRP into the clitoral and urethral spongy tissues. And guys get P shots or PRP into the penis, the Priapus shot. And now regenerative doctors are using things like stem cells, exosomes, not just PRP, but kind of these next generation of regenerative therapies and treatments. So there is a lot that can be done for rejuvenation,
Mhm.
remediation of aging, reversing of genital atrophy, so that you have, if you're a man, a nice, firm, hard, veiny penis. For a woman, a soft, supple, lubricated, highly pleasurable yoni. I like the word yoni. You're a
Mm.
tantric show. You know what a yoni is. So I think those are good. But then there's another step beyond that as well.
Mm.
And that's less medicine, less sexual health, and more achieving your orgasmic potential. The body, both, whether you're XXXY, XXY, there's a lot of variations, believe it or not. No matter what your body, the human body, the body of the Homo sapien, which is what we are, has 20 kinds of orgasms that it can achieve. And women aren't really surprised about that because they know, oh, I can have a clitoral orgasm, a vaginal orgasm, I can have a G-spot orgasm, I can have an anal gasm. Maybe some women have had breast gasms, maybe women have heard about my famous throat gasm, those kinds of things. But men generally are like, well, I'm good. I've got my one and I'm done. And they are really not living up to their orgasmic potential in the way that women are
Mhm.
trying to. So I'm trying to raise the awareness of that because I've really been teaching ejaculatory choice and male multiple orgasm with Jim Benson for decades now. So that I think is also very interesting. And because people don't understand that there are different kinds of orgasms, different locations to touch, different techniques to use, like erotic hypnosis or expanded orgasm, and objects of desire that help them achieve more orgasms, whether that's, fetish wear and latex or floggers or what have you, or it's tools. And I don't like to call them toys because they're way beyond toys, sex tools
Mhm.
that activate new neural pathways from your genital system to your brain, which is where pleasure's
Mm.
actually created. The stimulation is of the tissue, but the tissue, when it's activated, lays down neural pathways that essentially trigger different parts of the brain to
Mm.
perceive pleasure in different areas. And I'd love to talk to you more about how that works if you'd like to go there, but I really am open to wherever you want to go from here. But that's kind of what it is in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, there is so much in that. Yeah, I would love to go down that path and also, eventually I want us to circle back because I know a lot of people are listening heard that they can make their penis bigger,
Yeah.
and I think we should talk about that because I love how you use the analogy of you can make muscles bigger if you go to the gym,
Yeah,
so
I do.
why is
I
this part
triple.
of our body any different?
Yeah.
But let's go down the neural pathways because that is fascinating.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really interesting. So, and just for you guys that might have to take off fast, I've written a guide called the Pumping Guide. It's at
Mm.
pumpingguide.com and it has the protocol. Guys that have tried to do penis enlargement without the proper size cylinders and without the proper equipment, like there's now red light for the penis cylinders. So you can actually
Oh,
put
cool.
a red light wrapper on your pump these days, and that improves recovery by stimulating mitochondrial growth so that you actually get your gains faster and maintain your gains more easily.
Mm.
So that's kind of an interesting thing. Um, but yeah, so there's two studies that I want to tell you about with regard to activating more orgasmic pleasure. Dr. Nan Wise is a neuroscientist and sexologist who has put a lot of women into an MRI and looked at what parts of the brain light up when you touch different parts of the breast and the vulva. And so she realized that it's not just this one little location. It's not like you have an orgasm and this little thing lights up. It's like you can light up all kinds of areas of the brain by stimulating different tissue parts. So that's one thing that I think is really important to understand is that most people have a single pathway to orgasm if they can orgasm, or they haven't quite gotten there yet, but they can get there. Everyone can orgasm all the different ways. There's everyone can have all the orgasms and they are all learned skills that
Mm.
require activation. So she realized, okay, there's a lot of different zones, if you will, in the body that trigger different pleasure points in the brain. And the more of them that you get going at one time, stimulating the nipples, stimulating the vulva, stimulating the lips, mouth, tongue is like a triple system where you can really increase arousal because you're using all, you're stimulating all the areas.
Mm.
But also just specifically in the vulva, there was another interesting study that was done that took 41 women, and nurse practitioner touched them on different parts of their vulva. They touched them on the clitoral shaft, basically the clitoral tip, the glands, the labia, the introital sphincter, which is the opening to the vagina, the little round muscle that opens to the entrance to the vagina, the vestibule, and the perineal area. And basically, if you read the study, women had a small number of responses to being touched in these different areas. It feels good. It feels numb.
Mm.
It feels painful. I feel shame.
Mm.
And their conclusion was that different women like to be touched in different places, and their conclusion was incorrect. Those women who felt numb, shamed, painful, they had never been touched in those places in a loving and reverent way, which is what tantric lovemaking is about. And what was also interesting about that study was that they concluded that 40% of the women felt pleasure with their clitoris touched, and 53% felt pleasure with the entrance to their vagina touched. And so they said more women get pleasure from the entrance to their vagina touched.
Mm.
And again, they drew the wrong conclusion. The correct conclusion was most of those women had never even been touched on their clitoris. You know how everyone's always like, please include the clitoris in your lovemaking. And so they equated sex with introital stimulation, where really all that's happened is that none of the other areas have been activated. They've had shame, religious repression, societal repression, lack of knowledge of their own genital systems, lack of trust and surrender to their pleasure in the bedroom with a partner, or lack of solo pleasuring themselves, which is, as you know, Kirsten, so rampant, right? I mean, I don't have to tell you that even though you're in service to male partners and trying to help their women have incredible pleasure, that so many women have been traumatized, assaulted, shamed, repressed, and been censored, the knowledge has been held back from all of us. The censorship that's going on in America, where we have very little, if no, sex education, all of the social media censoring. I mean, podcasts honestly are the bastion of uncensored conversation. So at least we have one safe place.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting too, because I do a lot of videos on my OnlyFans. And the other day, so yesterday I'm going to get back to this pleasuring thing, but yesterday we did, my girlfriends came over and we did a winter solstice journey together. And so we just spent the whole day in a puppy pile in front of my fire, hanging out and talking about what we were letting go of at the winter solstice and what we were moving into in the new season. And one of the things that I was telling my girlfriends was that I was just on a podcast a couple of days ago, and it was a podcast with 3 men rapid firing, peppering me with questions for 2 hours after I'd driven 2 hours, after I spent 2 hours getting in hair and makeup and costume and, all that stuff for the video. And at the end of the 2 hours, one of them was like, if you're so against pornography, how come you have an OnlyFans? And I really got a lump in my throat around that, because I don't like to be on OnlyFans, because it is mostly pornography, pay to play kind of thing. But it is literally the only platform where I don't get kicked off for showing things as simple as pictures of a vulva and what all the parts are. I can't even post that on social media. I can't buy traffic. I can't advertise. I can't let people know about myself. And we all are constantly getting censored and shut down. And so what I said to the guys at the time was, well, it is the place where I can show what lovemaking looks like when it's not performative, when it's heart connected, conscious, consensual, joyful, pleasurable, erotic, passionate, where it's unfiltered and truly just beautiful, loving pleasure. And that's all I can do is go there. But I even have, like, I felt like when I said what I said, I forgot to remember that the reason I'm there is because of censorship, and it made me really nervous to answer that question. I
Mhm.
felt like I was like almost like, well, how can you call yourself a expert if you're on only? And when I answered,
Mhm.
my stomach did this like big growl, and the guys were like, "What was that sound?" And the other guy goes, "That was her stomach." And I emailed him afterward and I said, "If you can't take that stomach growl out, cut that whole segment, because you made me feel very insecure and kind of attacked by that question. Now I know what to say because I've
Mhm.
had time to think about it and process it with my girlfriends and get right with it again." But it's not friggin' easy to be the person. And I know you knew this. I'm speaking to the choir.
Mhm.
It's not very easy for us to give our gifts and to not be maligned or ridiculed or shut down. Like just this morning, I think it was, I was on, someone commented on social media about a podcast that I was on, and she was a woman and she said, "Why would I want to listen to anybody who shows her boobs on a podcast? She has nothing to say. Like, just because you're a sexual person,
Um,
you're some dumb idiot." It's
yeah.
like, oh no, my dear. And what was nice was the podcaster was like, she's 10 times smarter than you are. She has incredible experience. She's teaching and helping so many people have intimacy and connection that's going to give them a longer, healthier life. That for you to say anything about how she shows up is totally unacceptable, especially as a woman. Come on, girl. And
Mhm.
I was like, good, thank you. I appreciate being defended by people who adore and appreciate me for all of my gifts. Why should I play small anywhere?
Yeah.
And so I just think that that's just just a really interesting aside about what we go through to provide the information that turns people from acting like and treating women like porn stars to connecting hearts and souls together, which is what the
Mhm.
fundamentals of tantric lovemaking are.
Mhm.
So, anyway, I'll go
Yeah.
back to that study. I got a little off track, but I wanted to say those things
Yeah,
today.
no, no, I'm glad that you shared that. It's so funny that you bring this up because a while ago I had this thought about like what if there was an educational component on porn websites so because people are going to learning about sex through porn, which
Yeah.
isn't necessarily realistic. I'm like,
No.
what if somehow I created a team of people that were creating like educational style content on these websites because they are the only places where people can actually, I truly, aside from podcasting, have uncensored capacity.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you sharing that. And yeah, I'm cheering you on
Yeah.
and not giving up. And I kind of see those moments as like, perhaps a projection of their own issues or
That's what it
shame
is. That's what it is.
around sex, and they don't know where to
Yeah.
put it, so that's where they place it.
I
So,
bring a compassionate
yeah,
heart and
yeah.
appreciate the people who defend me, my
Mhm,
fans, the hosts. I am very well taken care of,
mhm,
and I just feel badly for when they do that. And
mhm,
I hope for more for them in this lifetime or the next one if there is such a thing. But going back to the whole orgasmic activation, one of the things that I've put together, I did an exhaustive study of all of the different categories of the tools that can activate pleasure. And there are 8 for the female, for the vulva owner, and 8 for the penis owner. And the 4 are essentially, well, instead of going into the detail of what they all are, what I'll do is I'll just give you a URL so we can cover more ground. At orgasmiccrosstraining.com, I put the 8 tools
Mm,
for the vulva, the 4 tools for the penis, and what I think are the best of breed of each of them. And what I encourage people to do is to start with one tool and then get another one and then get another one. So for women, you know, you're giving her internal vibration, external vibration, air stimulation, G spot pleasuring, etc. There's
mm,
liquors, there's wands that penetrate deeply into the body to engorge all that tissue to create more surface area that can get the blood into the women's genitals so that we have more signals parallel processing to the brain, activating higher levels of orgasmic potential and pleasure.
mm,
And orgasms are all a learned skill. And the more of them that you have, the easier it gets. And the more you can begin to take one pathway and then work that one, get turned on, get that going, and then add in the next pathway and add in the next pathway
mm,
until pretty soon every part of your vulva, of your penis, your testicles, your prostate, your perineum feels orgasmically delicious when it's pleasured. And so, all those women who were shame, hurt, numb, pain, the pain can be fixed with regenerative therapies. The shame can be fixed by learning about your body and taking back your sexuality and knowing that you are being kept from knowing what's going to give you a longer and healthier life due to a legacy of repression by people who want to keep us controlled and don't want us to be sexually self-expressed because then we're not afraid
mm,
and they can't control us. And I know that sounds a little conspiracy theory, and I don't like to get very religious, but it is religion that does it.
mm.
So, you know, I respect that some people have really good relationships with their God, but a lot of people are just brainwashed into cults that are oppressive, especially for women.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I know I appreciate you sharing that because there is so much shame that is placed upon people just from such a young age. And sometimes I like hope that it comes like that communication comes from like a good place of just wanting to love and protect, and it ends up being something else, and sometimes it's dark and not always positive. I would be curious to know if they ever did any studies like that with men.
Uh, I haven't seen one,
Yeah.
but you know it's going to be the same.
Yeah.
Men have a lot of shame,
Mhm.
shame for their desire, shame for the way their penis looks, shame about touching their
Mhm.
anus and their rectum or finding their V
Yeah.
spot. They have all that shame too.
Yeah.
So it's there.
Mhm.
For once, there's a women's study instead of a men's study. Most of the studies in
Yeah.
sexual health are all done on men.
Mhm.
So, but yes, it's quite interesting. So, really, sexual biohacking is also just orgasmic activation of the tissue. And the
Mm.
tissue is this erectile tissue that's in the penis and the vulva in equal amount. We have as much erectile tissue, we have a penis worth of erectile tissue in our
Mhm.
vulva. But the
Yeah.
problem is, this is the interesting thing, and I think this is really important for men to understand who are mostly your listeners. You wake up in the middle of the night, you have multiple nocturnal erections.
Mhm.
Sometimes you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a hard on so hard it wakes you up. You wake up and have morning wood, all predicated on you being healthy, of course. And if you don't have that, you are not healthy.
Yeah.
You better start taking better care of yourself. Um, you masturbate daily or multiple times a week. You get a very fast erection, like basically you see a boob and you get a hard on. And when you do that, it takes you just a minute or two for your penis to fill up with blood into those spongy tissue chambers. And that's because you have fast acting hemodynamics and a straight shot that requires the blood to flow in quickly and block off to hold the erection firm. Women, on the other hand, or vulva owners, we we are estrogen dominant, not testosterone dominant. So we don't have as much of that horny, lusty molecule. We do have some orgasmic dreams, but we're not waking up with erections in the middle of the night. We're not waking up with morning wood. Our hemodynamics are slow. Everything has to seep into all the nooks and crannies. And it takes about 20 minutes for a woman who's typically very sexually active, and about 30 minutes or longer for a woman who's infrequently sexually active.
Mm.
And what happens is that most people, when I say sex, they think intercourse. Sex equals penetration. Now, don't get me wrong. I would like to talk to you about some of my orgasmic intercourse techniques while I'm here today with you. If
Mm-hmm.
you'd like to go there, I'm putty in your hands, as I said. But what happens is that when you are a man and you're already turned on and you're already horny and you already have a hard on and you're ready to have quote unquote sex, you're thinking about penetration, and you've heard that sex means intercourse and everything else is just foreplay,
Mm-hmm.
then typically most women all their lives have been rushed to be penetrated, and they've been penetrated far before they have their lady boners. And even though that erectile tissue is completely wrapped around the vagina, it hasn't filled in with blood and it's not plumped up yet. And so she's been having intercourse with basically a flaccid vulva and vagina. And so
Yeah.
she can't really achieve orgasm from intercourse
Mm.
unless she's doing direct clitoral stimulation or using a toy. And if he got her really, really turned on, played with her breasts, made out with her, gave her a yoni massage, went down on her, put a few toys in her, on her, around her, talked, sensually to her, encouraged her, did all of those things and made her feel comfortable, and she trusted him and she loves him. She will be able to have orgasms from intercourse without even touching the tip of her clitoris, because the clitoris is wrapped around the vagina. And the stroking, if it's done well and right, and that's one of the things I want to talk about, are orgasmic intercourse techniques.
Mm-hmm.
If it's done right, she can just come the whole time, come and come and come and come and come and come and come just from intercourse. And then she can have all the other kinds of orgasms too: clitoral, G spot, female ejaculatory, nipplegasms, throatgasms, you name it. So, the number one sex technique that I tell men is to slow down, turn around, come back and get us, and help us get up on our orgasmic wave so that we can
Mm-hmm.
ride that and come and come and come.
Yeah.
Activate everything.
Yes, I love that you're sharing this. It's something we've kind of talked a little bit about on the show. And one of the things that I have been thinking about lately in terms of this and like the quote unquote floor play part of it and slowing down and noticing that even in that, there's like a hardness and a fastness to even those techniques. So I'm curious if you have any guidance on like how a man can excite a woman in that way before moving into full intercourse? Like, do you have any guidance or techniques on like how to play with nipples or how to give a massage or just like thinking more tactically about ways to do that that aren't because thinking that it just doesn't happen like fast and hard even before you're in intercourse fully.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I'm going to give you a bunch of techniques, but a lot of women rush sex too, because it's the
Hmm.
only thing they know. They're having very
Yeah.
masculine sexual experiences because it's literally all they know.
Hmm.
A lot of women do it just to get it over with too, but mostly it's just
Yeah.
they don't know. And what's
Yeah. And
interesting is, go
oh,
ahead.
I was just
Mhm.
going to say, and I think one of the things that I have found is that a lot of women they want to have good sex and they just haven't had it yet. And so they're just doing the same thing over and over again thinking that this is what sex is
Exactly.
and not understanding that it for both of you can be so much more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think there are many, many different strategies. One of them is kissing, which really gets things going. But another one that I almost I like sex to be different every single time, depending on what you're feeling, because women are on a 28-day cycle even after menopause. And so we want, sometimes I have this little kitty cat that has a little lion's head on it. It's over there. I can't show it to you. But sometimes we're a lioness and sometimes we're a kitty cat. And then sometimes it switches right in the middle of a lovemaking date. So we want a lot of different touch. Another important component is that we're never the same way twice. And we want something different every time. So what you did last time isn't going to work this time. So really, that's why your presence is required.
Mhm.
And I think the other piece is that the slower and lighter that you go, the more she can come and the longer she can come and the harder she can come.
Mm.
For example, one of the things I've been teaching for the last 2 decades is something called the expanded orgasm practice. And it's a 5-stroke technique. It's been called orgasmic meditation, extended massive orgasm, deliberate orgasm. The version that I teach is called expanded orgasm. And it is a very, very, very light clitoral stroking technique that allows a woman to drop into and ride that sensation and stay in orgasm for very long times. If you did it hard, you'd blow out her circuits and she'd need refractory recovery.
Mhm.
So when women first start, some of them, they really want super hard touch because that's what they've conditioned themselves to. That's their
Mhm.
pathway to orgasm. And if you take away anything, it's that there are many, many pathways to orgasm. And learning how to do lighter touch can often allow a woman to move from having the one and done, I'm blown
Mhm.
out kind of male ejaculatory experience and move more into the I'm coming for hours together with you.
Mhm.
The other piece of it is that holding a woman before you start lovemaking for quite an extended period of time allows you to co-regulate your nervous systems, slow and synchronize your breathing and your heartbeats, and it allows her to relax. And arousal begins in relaxation. So many men are like, what buttons do I push? What dials do I turn? Let me get her turned on. But
Mhm.
what they don't realize is that there's a step one, and that's that you have to get her out of her head and into her body, because estrogen is the molecule of safety, the hormone, the safety hormone, because women don't walk safely in this world. You know, there was a study across like 27 countries at the gender of predators, sexual predators, molesters, abusers, etc. And it's 99% men and 1% women across all these
Mhm.
different societies. Men are the predators, women are the prey, and we don't feel safe. And so, what our male body partners help us do is feel safe and protected and relaxed, that we can take
Mhm.
respite in their arms from this world that we walk in that's unsafe. And once we begin to relax, sometimes we let down a little bit. Tears might come. We have to speak things, we have to get things off our chest. We have to talk it out. We have to let things go. And then we can relax a little bit more. And then we can begin to be touched and stroked. And then we sometimes will want to have more kissing, soft kissing, eyelids, forehead, cheeks, neck, not just like a tongue down our throat. And warming up our mouths, stroking our breasts, not just grabbing our nipples, but, soft touch, pleasuring, lifting our breasts, squeezing them a little bit, kneading them. And then from there, stroking the nipples lightly, activating them, not pinching or biting until we want that. And the women who want all that pinching and biting, they would be well served to slow down themselves. They are in their masculine, and it'll be better for them in the long run. They'll come better if they don't try to rush to get
Mhm.
that feeling, but they just allow themselves the grace to let their body come into its arousal. And
Mhm.
I myself still, at this point in my life, Kirsten, I still have to sometimes just tell myself to be patient with my body. Sometimes it takes me a while to let down and relax and get into my turn on.
Mhm.
And if we stop rushing everything, it makes it so much better. After that, belly, buns, legs, thighs. I teach guys something called the bullseye touch technique, which is you want to go for this creamy center. You want to be like full speed ahead. You want to grab her by the. And that's the worst lover in the world, is someone who grabs her by the. What you want is to work from the outside in. Stroke her hair, kiss her cheeks, rub her shoulders, smooth her buns, smooth her thighs, rub her belly. And then you can touch her breasts and then her nipples. You can touch her yoni on the outside before you go in. It really is just working that system to allow her to relax and to get turned on and aroused. And then, of course, there are a ton of oral pleasuring techniques, all
Mm.
kinds, using tongue and fingers and toys. Um, I have a video and a download. I think it's a 10x oral, like 10x your oral sex, 10xoral.com that has, I think, 4 really incredible techniques for the penis and for the vulva owner, that are really good ones to learn. That'll give you a sense of like, oh wow, that was 4, and she's got 40 more for each of us, for each body. Okay, there's a lot I
Mm.
could learn here
Mm-hmm.
that you're not going to see on porn that are very, very good techniques. And
Mm-hmm.
then getting those toys out, getting that wand out and rubbing the vulva around the outside, kneading the labia, kneading the mons. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you want to have a good female ejaculatory squirt session, you really have to get that mons
Yeah.
loose like jelly, or the blood plasma can't run down and empty into the Skene's glands for the contraction to emit the fluid. So it's not just hammering at the G spot
Mm-hmm.
as fast as you can. It's, you know, it's really just like letting her relax and surrender and
Mm-hmm.
letting everything flow in so that she can let her feminine waters release.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it's not urine. All women can ejaculate, just like a man ejaculates and urinates out of his penis. Both of those fluids come down the urethral canal. One is ejaculate and one is urine. And there's a little muscle that controls what comes out in
Mm-hmm.
all of our bodies. So I think that's also a very important thing, because a lot of people who are interested in tantric lovemaking are very interested in Amrita and the feminine waters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are just some of the things that can really help to reframe what lovemaking looks like. You know, a hot makeout when you're stroking his cock and he's playing with your boobs and your yoni to get you going is, and saying words of adoration and telling you how
Mm-hmm.
beautiful you look, and you know, all of that. I mean, that can be super hot too. So
Yeah.
instead of thinking I'm just doing all this stuff to have intercourse, think about I'm doing all this stuff and I get to have intercourse, and I'd like to make her come the whole time I'm
Mm.
giving her intercourse. And so that leads me to more of the intercourse techniques, which
Yeah.
I'll just leave you a URL. I've got 10 orgasmic intercourse techniques that include my thrust in time technique, which is a shallow and deep stroking strategy that if you get to the 4 count on that, I guarantee you 90% of the women you make love to will have an orgasm right then and there with that one technique. And
Whoa.
all of that is at orgasmicintercourse.com, and it's all free. It's just my techniques.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, when you brought up the toys, it left me with a question of what are your thoughts and opinions about, I know some people are weird about using sex toys or tools, and just how can people move beyond that, because I think they can be a really beautiful element of intimacy.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say some shitty things here. Um, I would say I would say generally a person who is afraid to incorporate tools into pleasuring tools into their lovemaking is a closed-minded, insecure person who needs to open up and learn more about how to use these tools.
Mhm.
That you use an electric toothbrush, you use an Instant Pot, you use a coffee maker, you use a battery charger when you go on vacation and leave your car, you use a drill bit, you know, a drill. I mean, you have so many tools.
Mhm.
Why would you not want to bring tools into the
Mm.
bedroom? Because it's the heart connection, the presence, the love, the holding, the adoration, the worship that she's there
Mhm.
for, plus the fun, the adventure, the eroticism, the stimulation, the variety, and all of those things are supported by using every tool available.
Mm. I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, the more that I've studied sex, the more I find that for some reason we tend to make sex seem like this weird thing that normal life principles don't apply to. Going back to even thinking about going to the gym, you work out your muscles. Why wouldn't you be able to do that with your penis? You use tools all the time and during the day. Why couldn't you use tools during intimacy? So I appreciate you sharing that. For anyone that's questioning using a toy or a tool in sex, listen to that. Yeah.
And go to orgasmic cross training for the tools that really make a difference in
Yeah.
expanding pleasure.
Yeah. Well, I would love to ask, I know we kind of started with the biohacking and coming back to actually the penis pump if we can
Yeah.
for a moment, because I would
Sure.
love to share with everyone listening. It's so funny because I think we all seen like those like scary ads on the internet or like in old-timey magazines and things like that about this. And I've always been like, there's no way that that actually works. But it seems like there's so much more science coming out showing that it does. And I know
Yes.
you were on, Dave Asprey's podcast showing
Yeah.
all of it, and it was, like, so fun to listen and watch that, all of the information that you have. So if you could share a little bit for anyone that's like, I mean, I don't know any guy that even if you have a big dick, you probably want it to be bigger or thicker or anything.
Yes.
So,
That's
yeah,
right.
if you can share
No
about
woman
that.
ever, all women want to be richer and thinner, and all men want a bigger dick. That's how it
Yeah.
works. What I'm holding up here for those of you who aren't, who are listening to the audio is 8 cylinders, 8 penis pump cylinders from 1 and 3/4 inches in diameter, all the way up to 3 2/3. Nope, 3.5. And these are gradient volumes. And what's interesting about it is that the hand pump hooks onto that. And the hand pump hooks onto the top here, and you put your penis in, lubed up, and seat it on your abdomen. And when you pump, it pulls the blood into the penis. And
Mhm.
essentially, it pulls a little more blood in there than you can get in just having your own erection.
Mhm.
That expands the capillary system. And then that allows the nerve system to grow to the edges further. And that also increases, it does tiny little micro damage that then repairs and gives you new tissue growth.
Mm.
And you have to have the right size cylinder so you have the right amount of vacuum. You have to have the right pressure. So you need to have a really good gauge. Where's my gauge? I don't know if I have it right here. Um, you need to have a really good gauge, and you need to have a release valve.
Mhm.
So those three things are super important. So in the pump guide, which is at pumpingguide.com, it has the pump I recommend, which is called the Whopper system, because it's a 2-cylinder system. You put your testicles and penis in first,
Mhm.
and that helps with the length. And then you do pumps with just the penis cylinder, and that does the girth. You don't want to pump up fast. You want to pump up slowly to the negative vacuum pressure so that the girth is distributed through the whole penis and not just making the base big.
Mhm.
And there are also other tools. There's a traction device
And I
that,
was just gonna ask, so what the technology of how this works, so that there's a suction element of it and
yes,
that it's all about increasing the blood flow?
blood carrying capacity of the penis.
Okay.
Yep. So it grows the penis, it grows the tissue, and it increases how much blood can be carried in that chamber, in those 3 chambers.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then you
and I
can,
know in the guide, it tells you all of like, it's a very specific protocol to make it successful. Just
exactly.
for people that are listening, like, how
Mhm.
often should they be doing this
No
roughly?
more than every other day. Always a rest day. Same as when you go to
Mhm.
work out. You never do arm day 2 days in a row or leg day 2 days in a row. You
Mhm.
never do dick day 2 days in a row. You have to have recovery. And the other thing, it takes about 10 months to see 20 to 25% increase in overall penile volume. And then you can move into maintenance mode where you're just pumping once a week or so just to keep the gains that you've achieved. Any guy that bodybuilds knows that
Mhm.
when he works out and he gets to his form, that he can pretty much maintain that form a lot more easily than the energy it took to get there.
Mhm.
So there's the traction device called Deep. There's the red light therapy. There's also a head enlarger because some men's penises are thin shaft, big head,
Mm.
or big shaft, thin head, or bend, or
Mhm.
there's a lot of different variation. As you know, if you've seen a lot of penises, you know how varied they are. There's varied as vulvas. And so getting just the right fit, using just the right tool, having just the right negative vacuum, knowing just the right protocol is really what it takes to get the reversal of the atrophy and then the gains. And pretty soon you will start seeing little red capillaries all
Mhm.
over your penis, on the surface of your penis. And then pretty soon you'll see them getting bigger and you'll get this nice veiny innervation. And you'll have your erection will be super firm. And
Mm.
you'll get out of the shower and even flaccid. You'll be like, oh, wow, my penis looks bigger, even getting out of the shower. And then when it's full and erect, it'll be the biggest it's ever been.
Wow.
So, for those guys that are like, I'm very skeptical,
Mhm.
I completely understand. And I have helped thousands and thousands and thousands of men with this protocol and this particular Whopper tool be like super happy. And the interesting
Mm.
thing about penis enlargement is that what it ultimately does is it gives a guy confidence. When a
Mhm.
guy is happy with the shape, the size, the look, the firmness, the texture, the veininess of his penis, the performance of his penis, he's just a more confident guy, which is
Mhm.
one of the things that I love about it.
I am so glad that you shared that because I was thinking that piece about it. It's not just how something looks or the size of it. It's like, how do you feel about yourself? And I could imagine whoever he makes love with next is gonna feel that confidence and, whoo, we love that, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, you have shared so much information. I know that I'm gonna put all of the guides that you shared in the show notes so people know exactly where to go to get all that, but is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wanna share or that is just close to your heart that you're like, "I have to say this and get this out there?"
Yes, one more thing.
Mm,
I'm going to have this sent to you. This is a new lubricant system. It's a pleasure
mm,
protocol. It's a company called Foria, and they use CBD, phytocannabinoids, and MCT oil and
interesting.
botanicals in their lubricant. But they also have something called Awaken, which is an intimacy oil that you actually put this on the vulva first. So get this. So when you have a woman over, first thing you do is you apply the Awaken all over the vulva, the clitoral hood, the clitoral shaft and tip, the outer labia, the inner labia, the vestibule, the perineum. Just a coating of it. You're just
Mhm,
putting a coating on it. It's not a lube, so don't like keep rubbing it. Just coat it on there. Then you can use the sex oil, which is the lubricant that gets the slidey stuff, and it's super compatible with the
mm.
botanical awakening oil that all of a sudden is like waking up her pussy and sending all these signals to her
Ooh.
head, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I feel my pussy. Ah. So it gets it going, which is really
Mm,
nice doing this in your yoni massage time. And then if you're going to have intercourse, they have these what are called melts, which are
mhm,
these little cocoa butter troches or suppositories that go up inside her vagina. She can just unwrap one, hand it to her. She can pop it in, and then it'll melt in there. And it's really hard to get lube into the vagina. It's just hard to get
mhm.
it up in there. Even if you coat your penis with it, you can coat your penis with the sex oil, but pop one of those up in there or have her do it. It'll melt so that by the time you get through the yoni massage, if you're ready to have intercourse, then when you enter her, it's going to be so nice and slidey and rich and
Yeah.
wonderful. And the good news is that if you want to stop, pull out, and go down on her, you could literally, everything is edible.
Oh
Everything
my
is just
gosh.
pure and edible. There's no like chemical ingredients in it or anything. And
Mhm.
so this is at pleasureprotocol.com. And after the show, I'll give you my email address so you can send me your physical address and I will
Mm.
have them send the Pleasure Protocol to you so you can try it out.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. I'm gonna give everyone an update on how that goes.
It smells so good too. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, I think that I thank you for sharing that also, and I just think that there's so much that can be added into our sex life,
Yeah.
be it the tools, the pumps, the lubes, everything is available to us, so why not use it and have fun with it and enjoy it and see what is possible? It is so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us today, Susan.
Thank you so much for having me and
Yeah.
being so easy to talk to and such a
Mm,
kindred spirit. It was my pleasure to come on.
yeah.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Kirsten.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of The Naked Connection. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss another episode. Trust me on this, your sex life and that special someone in your life will thank you for it. And if you really love the show, please take a moment and leave a 5-star review or a written review and let me know what you think. It would mean so much to me and this show. Until next time, happy connecting.